So here we are today with another submission from a subscriber called Dirt Cobain. This is his trip report from Purple Sticky Salvia 80 times extract. A group of friends and I were enjoying a vacation in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Those familiar with the area know that there are better places to visit, but maybe not for cheaper. To set the stage for this experience, I'll have to explain the events that led to several young individuals unwittingly stumbling into their first psychedelic experience. To make a long story short, we ended up finding a good contact for some herb in the area, and he promised to be our plug for the weekend. We cleverly dubbed him Dr. Uggs in our friend's contact, and kept in touch for the few days we were there. After putting us off for a day, he agreed to meet us at a sketchy apartment, a decent drive inland from the beach. To spare you the boring details, they took our money and walked off, and when we caught up to the group, all four of them were on bicycles. A friend was hung out the passenger side of another friend's ride and hollered, "Are you fucking for real?" To which all four of the bicycle-mounted gentlemen responded by brandishing firearms. Naturally, we peeled the fuck out and had a silent, sombre and sober car ride back to the hotel. After several long moments of silent commiserating on the balcony, one of us suggested, "Why don't we just get some salvia? It's legal here, innit?" No one else in the group had even heard of it before, aside from that one clip that aired on Tosho of the dude who scrambled up the wall and out of the window. Of course, each of us out of $40 and dreadfully sober, it didn't take much convincing for all of us to pack into the sedan and head for the legendary 420 Superstore. We sent those of us in who had false IDs, who explained to us that the clerk was very excited to sell them an 80 times extract of Purple Sticky Salvia, and gave them a proper tutorial and explanation behind the need to use a butane torchlighter. We rushed home, each of us excited to try this new substance, but when the time came, no one wanted to go first. Well, except for me, of course. The high was explained to me as like weed, but much stronger and a little more trippy, which I had no context for what a trippy experience truly was. Considering the circumstances, I was very eager for a head change and loaded up a fat bowl, with all of us sat at the glass table on the balcony overlooking the pool. I torched the bowl and held it in, christening a new pipe. I held the smoke as long as possible, and as I exhaled, the rush hit instantly, and was comparable to a really good high from some medical cannabis, but only for a moment. I was instantly confused and unsure of my surroundings. I remember looking down at the pool, leaning over the rail and with a calm voice in my head saying, "Just jump." From across the table my friend asked, "So, how does it feel?" Audibly, time slowed down until it screeched to a halt, and my consciousness left the building. All of a sudden it was no longer nighttime, and I was no longer on a balcony. I was standing in the middle of a cartoon street, and everything was coloured in fluorescent neon. Cars zipped up down past me either side, except the cars, buildings and sun were inexplicably alive. They stretched up, down, left and right jarringly fast, all to the beat of some of insane techno-style music that was the conductor of this realm. Everything moved in unison in reaction to the different tones and notes at an insanely fast frequency that could only be described as otherworldly. I soon came to notice that I was no longer in my body, and could navigate this new environment just by focusing on where I wanted to go within it. I floated towards distant fractals and visions that are now lost to me a decade later, but the following I imagine will stick with me for a lifetime. Who knows what I was exploring in the meantime, but as I was coming back to reality, the neon city seemed to have faded to a desert, where the only entities left were me, or at least the insinuation of me, and goddamn motherfucking Mr. Krabs. Yes, Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob. However, this wasn't just any Mr. Krabs. If you've ever seen older episodes of SpongeBob, you'll recall how they would have these hyper-realistic drawings or paintings added into the frames for jokes. This one in particular became a meme. A grotesque version of the greedy, conniving crab with fingernails in his claws, and distorted imagery all around. I don't know what it is about this disgusting image that caused it to imprint on my psyche, but eventually it overtook the experience, until all I could see was it, and the solid green backdrop that accompanied the image. The techno music that guided this experience died down to a single low and unnerving buzz of a tone. All of a sudden it was all gone, and I was zapped back into my body, feeling ever so strange. As it turns out, this whole experience had to have lasted less than a minute, seeing as it only took the time for the next person to light the pipe and take their hit. As he exhaled, he burst into a fit of laughter. When he raised his eyebrows to laugh, the entire top half of his head stretched up and wiggled around, and looked much like what would happen when you were quickly dragging an application that wasn't responding on Windows, copy and pasting itself to expand. Apparently he had only a short bout of laughter, but the sound and imagery repeated itself for me multiple times. At this point, I decided that I had enough of the nonsense and non-verbally began to crab walk over my friend with the stretchy eyebrows, who was laughing and screaming in his chair. I made my way to the bed to attempt to piece back together reality, which I had just broken for the first time. The feeling was akin to picking up a tile, or in this case a beautiful painting that had been laying on the dirt, only to discover the multitude of insects and critters that made their home beneath it. I felt disgusting. By this time the next friend had begun smoking and experienced his own version of temporal displacement. He explained to me that he went to follow me to share his experience, but each time he passed through the sliding glass door, he would reappear again outside on the balcony, and reality would be tinted a different colour. He told me that it felt like he was stuck in that loop for eternity, which I sympathised with. By then our third friend entered the room, bewildered. He was staring at the walls and gasped and exclaimed, "Oh my god, there are nails everywhere! I can feel my nails in my hands!" Which devolved into a fit of laughter upon seeing our other friend attempt to take a bite out of the TV. By this point I was no longer tripping and felt like I was being guided around on a cloud, weightless and unconcerned with the chaos that unfolded in front of me. My two friends were laughing hysterically, and slowly began to move towards each other, I assumed to embrace and laugh. However, as they got within arm's reach of one another, my friend who was concerned with his fingernails began flapping his arms and screeching like I could only assume a pterodactyl sounds. He began battering the other friend with his hands and screeching and bit down on my friend's scalp, luckily not hard. The sight of this was all enough to make another friend, who had not yet tried it, laugh so hard she actually pissed herself. I guess you had to be there. In retrospect, none of us had any idea what was in store for each of us. The final friend, who at first was unconvinced, decided to try it after seeing the time we all had, though I seemed to be the only one amongst who recognised the danger associated with such a loss of control. She proceeded to have a mild experience with no visuals whatsoever. Perhaps experiences do vary that greatly, or my friends had more than their fair share. However, after comparing stories with each of us, it seemed I was the only one who was yanked out of my body and soul, and shown something entirely fabricated by the experience, with no contact to reality. This was my first experiment with psychedelics, and I had zero expectations of what a hallucinatory experience might consist of. If I had done even just a little research, I imagine I still would have tried the substance, but I would have been much more prepared. Instead, I believe I was left to my own devices when it came to identifying, understanding and working through what I believed to be an ego death at 13 years old. For months, if not years, I felt like an alien, or that I was irrevocably changed from the experience. As an atheist, I became much more interested in things that were esoteric and immaterial, as it was so tempting to ascribe supernatural meaning to such an indescribable experience. Though Occam's razor tells me the best way to describe the experience is that Salvia extract is a chemical compound that will take your marbles, coat them in batshit, and throw them into the ceiling fan. We were young, dumb, and uninformed. Many moments of these combined trips could have easily devolved into disaster. Always remember to do your research.